Jennifer?
Well, I was just going to say that Dr. Luza referred to the year when Carmel had to make the decision about whether or not to take Title I, and it really was a nebulous ground where it wasn't clear what the punishments would be if they didn't make AYP or API, and Carmel was fortunate that they would have 1 or 2 years of at risk and then get out of it. We had a great test search that we'd be holding steady, and we've managed to stay behind the curve where so many schools in California have been at risk. That as a school that is not Title I, looking at the district, I mean, we do much of the things that are on that slide already. When you are teaching principals at 9 of your 12 schools how to write a school plan, we write our plan very similarly. We analyze the data, we're setting our goals, we're trying to have benchmarks in place. So that's happening anyway. The Title I parent involvement plan, we didn't have to write a separate plan and have a separate meeting, but it's something that's manageable, and I think our teachers would be fine with that. So coming from a Title I school that had strict responsibilities, the money kind of makes it worthwhile. Because when you say you must spend 10%, if you don't make program improvement goals, you must spend 10% on staff development, my teachers are dying to spend the money on staff development and go to conferences and get more training. When you say that you have to spend money on the after-school SES tutoring, yes, that's a set-aside, but if we see children with a need, we want it. But we do understand that it will impact other schools. So if it's a phase-in process, it gives the teachers more time to be aware of what those requirements are. We're kind of holding steady with the fact that we think we can meet the program improvement goals and or stay at least far enough behind some of the other schools in year 7 that we won't be as noticeable for a while. That's sort of my opinion.
So I think, thank you. So I can continue pretty much, what happens, if you don't meet AYP for 5 consecutive years. So after 1 year, there's a corrective action, and it fails to make AYP. Then we move to the restructuring. The district must prepare a plan, and then the new governance must be in place no later than 1 year after being identified for restructuring. And then, sort of, I mean, again, what happens in where we kind of said that. So move on. So what the business department did for us right here, they this is the Title I schools. The ones Verona Meadows, they have low income 89.16%, El Gavilan 86.81, Carmel 82.2, Laurelwood 65.45, Lincoln 39.53, Loma Vista 90.49, Los Padres 91.99, Mission Park 48.09, Monterey Park 75.48, Monterey 75.48, Natividad 93.13%, Roosevelt 96.27, Sherwood 96.8, and University Park 75.33. So this is the Title I funding right now for each site. And then this is what they get for parent involvement at their site. And this is proposed site funding if we were to add University Park for next school year. So, of course, the Title I funds decreases. Also the parent involvement, as you can see. Let you kind of look at that. So questions on that? Okay, so then if I present you the next slide, we were to add now University Park in Laurelwood, because Laurelwood is right here at 65.45, and University Park is at 75.33. So the proposed funding, again, of course, it decreases. You keep adding schools, it's up to you. Then there's the other slide. We're to add University Park, Laurelwood, and Mission Park. So Mission Park, it's 48.9% of low socioeconomic, and this is how much they look at, and under parent involvement.
Ms. Barnes and then Mr. Kim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have 2 questions.
Yes,
The question is, so we get X amount of money no matter what,
Right.
and that money, if we add more schools,
have to
you have to spread it out.
Distribute it. Mhm.
How do we decide who's going to get what proportion of that money?
How do they decide? It's based on their, it's based on a formula, based on their low income, number of students that qualify for.
So the difference between Sherwood and Roosevelt being like 40 some odd thousand, $50,000 is because there's
Size
There's a
Higher poverty.
high poverty.
No, it's the number of students.
Number of students.
There's an allotment per student in Title I that's made. So Sherwood has a larger enrollment. Roosevelt has less, so they receive. Thank you.
Okay. So if we were to add all, all sites, including Lincoln right here, which is very close to becoming, 40%. So this is their enrollment and their final enrollment criteria.
And the federal government allows for 35% to be basically, you can count, in that range from 35% to count as a school-wide. So that's an exception the federal government allows for. We have a different standard that's up to 75%, but the federal government on loan application makes it so if you have 35%, you can be considered a school-wide. So, you very easily could say every school in this district meets that 40% threshold, and the poverty is affected in every single school, and it affects hundreds of kids in every single school.
Okay, any questions?
Any more questions from the board? Ms. Barnes?
No.
How do we get them to give us more money? I mean, if more school, more kids are qualifying, why can't we get more money?
I know, I think it's based on the number of students. Yeah.
Ms. Huerta, one of the things that comes to my mind is that we keep reading and we keep talking about student achievement.
Right.
And student achievement is applied to every child from day one, with or without Title I. With or without Title I. That is our charge. And yet we have children that are still behind schedule. And with Common Core, I think we have more of a, we have to be more not only focused on instruction and promotion, but at the same time that children are coming along together down the way. And my question basically comes from, how can the district afford failure
We
of children? We cannot afford it, no matter what dollar you put onto it. But if we have people demanding what they want, then we're not going to get very far. It's what we have to really support is the faculty, the staff, and everybody here who's paying attention to the child every day, instead of coming in and saying this is what they need. Because the experts are in the school site. Do you agree with that or not? The experts are within the school site and the district level, which is supporting the school. Any other public comment before I close it?
No, actually, I had some questions, but I would like to comment about the whole thing as well.
Okay.
One question I have for
Once she's finished. Yeah.
Well, basically, but this is just a conclusion. Don't forget the purpose of Title I is to ensure that all students have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to have high academic achievement. It's also challenging within the state academic and standards and assessments. And just there are many ways of going forward, but only one way of standing still.
That's history, yes. Any other questions, board? Say none, okay. Public comment, I can accept public comment right now.
Okay.
We're going to time that as well. Thank you very much, Ms. Huerta,
Thank you,
for
Mr.
your information and also your department pulling it together.
Sean Henry, one of the questions I was going to ask is, and that actually goes to what you were saying, the application for Title I is $2 million. So what we got presented was a $1 million. The reason why I sat with Ms. Zanzo is because I thought she might answer a question. She did, and she gave me some information. There's a whole other $1 million that's being held back for probably the SES funds and transportation. So there's a whole other $1 million that's part of the application. So the program improvement schools are giving up another $1 million. So it's $2 million grant, and that's part of this. So that was the original question I had. I do want to thank Ms. Barnes for coming and giving me a copy of the chart of where the money was, because that was very, very helpful. And I think that was, I think it really shows. I actually asked Ms. Anzo, hey, on Friday morning, if you were afforded, in this case, $56,000, would that help the students in Mission Park? She said, absolutely. I'm pretty sure for Laurelwood it would be the same, and for other schools, because the numbers are there. In terms of one of the answers that was given by Dr. Luza before, Carmel actually gets, and I have some forms here for the board too, if you want to hand them out here. Carmel schools actually take Title I funds, and actually one of the schools, Chorlecitos, has been taking it. At least I looked back 10 years ago, and they had Title I funds for 55 students for 14.5%. So Carmel, who the last numbers that I have compared to our district is a basic aid district, has $17,000. They collect Title I for 50 to 60 kids. Now, the 5 schools, Laurelwood and the 4 Area 4 schools, are a third of the population. We have 1,800 kids that have not been getting any funds for those schools that affect poverty in the classroom. And so the 75% has been an exclusion to 1,800 students in our district. And there's not much of a justification. It really should be provided, because if you're a teacher at Laurelwood and you have 65% poverty, that means the majority of your kids, if you have 30 kids in the class, you probably have 18, 19 kids that are affected by poverty. The exact reason why Title I funds were established. That's why 40% is for school-wide, and low poverty schools are 25%. You can even get Title I funds for less than 25%. And Carmel collects the money. So whatever, they're not doing bad in the financial department, but they collect Title I's for their poor kids. So I think it's something that should be really looked at, and I agree with Mr. Hoffman. The thresholds should be propped down, provided to all the students, because what was shown was only half of the grant. The other half is going to all the tutoring programs, and those are going to all the PI schools. So let all of our students have an opportunity to have extra resources to meet the needs at their school, because the experts are the teachers, are the staff members that are close. You are experts, but you don't have all the answers. You need to trust your staff more.
Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next item.
Before we go, I'd like to make a comment. Yes. When the district received Title I, like 20 years ago, the threshold was 85, because the direction from the state were you need to concentrate the money to make an impact in fewer schools. So after a couple of years, so that was 95. After a couple of years, the board took action and said, well, let's include a couple of schools, and they lowered it to 85. And like 12 years ago, the board lowered the level to 75. So this presentation is for your information. Basically, is a board decision how the district is going to operate. Now, 20 years ago, we did have maybe 3-4 students Title I in some sites. Now it's over 40% in every school site. So this is information for you to analyze, and hey, we're here to follow the board directions.
Dr. Luza, what would it take then? Do we need to agendize this as an information item to figure out if we could reduce that from 75 to 40, or should it be an action item? What should we do?
Well, this is information. We can bring the item for next board meeting for action. Basically, what you're doing, you're changing policy, which is your right. Instead of expecting 75% of low income, they say 60 or 50, it's at your pleasure. The state is clear 40%, I think that's the minimum that the state is requiring.
So you can bring it back to us with some options or recommendations?
At your pleasure. At your pleasure. You can bring the item for action to change the policy with options. And so you can decide and discuss, or postpone the discussion, or continue the discussion at your pleasure. Are you directing to bring options next meeting?
Not me. No. I am not able to be here on the 13th. So, I mean, I soon have it the next meeting or later.
Yeah, okay.
What's the pleasure, Vice President?
Well, then we need to make it so that Mr. Hoffman is here.
We can still bring, we can still analyze and wait for Mr. Hoffman to be present to have a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.